Today, I'm going to be talking to Saturnin Pugnit, who is a technologist and founding member of the Worldcoin team. He is deeply involved in the realms of artificial intelligence, biotech, neurotech, aerospace, and energy. And he has a degree from Caltech where he met most of the other founding members of the Worldcoin team. Sam Altman, co-founder of OpenAI, is also a co-founder in Worldcoin. Sat's work is driven by a commitment to shape the future of AGI. And in this chat, we're going to talk about everything from AGI to WorldCoin, open versus closed source, and everything in between. So I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. Let's get into it. So I want to dive right into the topics, if that's okay with you. And first, kind of the starting point is the current state of artificial intelligence. I want to know what you think about the scalability based on our current technologies and where you think we are in this inflection of this new technology.
I mean, that's a very big question, I think, and we could be talking about this for ages. So there are many parts to it. I think, first of all, this technology is starting to tie into a much broader geopolitical context, which is now very important, I think, because it's becoming more and more the forefront of the economy, of pushing the economy forward, of the defense tech, and therefore its reach is just much bigger than it used to be. I think what we're seeing and what's becoming more public now is what people in the field have been saying for the past 10 years and envisioning for the past 10 years is that deep learning seems to work. It seems that we can scale this. It seems that we can scale intelligence. It doesn't seem that there's anything unique to humans and that you can create the same level of intelligence with machine and that we're getting closer and closer and closer. And that there is no obvious reason why this would stop or slow down. And I think this is just a continuity of this that we're seeing right now. And this is just the beginning, I think. This is the realization of the world of how big this thing is. And I think this is only going to go exponential. I don't think it's a bubble. I think it's a technology that's really going to change the face of the world in many ways. And we're seeing, I think, the very beginning of it right now.
Yeah, and I've read a few of your articles and kind of did a little bit of research before we hopped on this chat. So I know you have some pretty bold predictions about how AI and AGI are going to affect the world, and we'll get to those. Based on the current technology, I mean, you mentioned it doesn't seem like there's any limits to what we can scale right now, but maybe we start with data. Right now, we're kind of running out of human-made data that isn't behind authentication or paywalls. And even then, that data isn't being created at the rate that we really need. What are your thoughts on synthetic data, or do you think that there's going to be more leverage with doing more with the existing data we have?
I think it's going to be a mix. So it's very clear to everyone in the field that we're going to hit the data wall. This is no news to, and it's not going to be a surprise. Like we've seen that coming for a while. Basically, a lot of the brain power in the field went into scaling and ingesting more data because data was still available. So it was useless to spend more time improving too much the algorithmic if you can just scale it. But now, if you can scale it that easily, we're just going to spend more brain power on the algorithmic side of things, which is just something we haven't had to do before, and we can also do that. Secondly, we can also, as you say, create artificial data. And this is also something that, as I say, it's not a surprise that we're going to run out of data, and that people have been getting ready to do and been studying, actually. And there's a lot to be done there. You can create a lot in artificial environments. So I think the data wall is big, but it's not as big as people say because, again, like if we go from first principle, humans have a lot less data and humans can acquire a level of intelligence that's better than the current AI in terms of reasoning, at least. And there's no reason why we can't do that with the AI.
I think that's a really good analogy is humans do reach the intelligence that humans reach with much, much less data. So that is interesting. Regarding synthetic data, like in my mind, if you have a model that is creating synthetic data and it's really just a derivative of the original data that it was fed, how good can it really be? And that's still a question in my mind. I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as most other people in the industry about this. So I want to get your take on that. Is it real, like can AI create novel data, unique data, really valuable data for kind of the next epoch of intelligence to be created?
So first of all, when you're creating synthetic data, it doesn't mean that you're creating it with AI. I think the best example of this is video games. For example, is synthetic worlds that don't exist, and you can get physics simulation, and you have entire physics simulation ecosystem, and there is not a single hint of AI in all of this. So synthetic data simply mean that the data is generated in a way that is purely computational and that you can then reproduce it at scale. So there's no need to have AI necessarily to get synthetic data. You can use AI, but you don't have to. What's important is that you have a setup that's reproducible and that's as similar as possible to the real data that you would see in the world. I think one of the areas where it's very obvious that synthetic data can do most of the work is in imaging and spatial reconstruction and stuff like this, because as I mentioned, we already have 3D world, we already have really good physics engine, and you can very easily see how you can create an infinite number of scenes from this, and the data is almost as good as the real data. And so what they do, and what many people already do, is Tesla does this, is they create those synthetic world. They create 99% of the data from there. They train the bulk of the model on this, and then the last like 5% training is done on real data. Because to learn roughly that a car, when it goes in this direction, won't slow down instantly or won't suddenly go 90 degrees, you don't really need a perfect looking car. You just need to understand the general concept, which you can do with very synthetic world. It's only to understand the like fine grained detail that you would need the real data. And probably this can be extended to much more than just 3D world and spatial visualization and stuff like this. So I'm really not worried about this. I think it won't be easy, but given the amount of brain power, money, and momentum behind this, we are not going to get stuck by this. And again, if the data is the problem, the algorithm can be improved by orders of magnitude.
Yeah, I agree. There's still plenty of algorithmic unlocks to happen. I'm glad you brought up spatial intelligence. Did you see Feifei's new startup? I think it's World Labs, if I remember correctly, but they're kind of building a new architecture and really it's meant to be spatial intelligence, meaning it can understand the real world, and ultimately embodied intelligence in the form of robots is really kind of the end goal, I believe, of spatial intelligence. Did you see that? What do you think? Is that like, can language models achieve true spatial intelligence, or do we need a new approach altogether like World Labs is attempting to do?
I think this is a very hard question to answer with confidence, whether language model are the architecture that will be able to ultimately extend to spatial understanding. I think there's a very good chance that it can do fairly good at this task. Whether it can extend to be the final form of what would be used on robots, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe something else, although it's very promising. But I do think that within the next couple of years, we are going to see. So as we're seeing, for example, for OpenAI, it used to be text to text. Now we're seeing voice to voice directly, which is like a modulable voice. And basically, the extent to which the deep learning is gonna expand is gonna be broader and broader. Soon it's gonna be voice to all the way to action inside the robots, and there's deep learning trained end to end. And we just found out that the more you train, you just remove everything that's human made and just put a bunch of deep learning as end to end as you can, you get the best results. And so people
Well,
already
that's what
understood that
Tesla did. That's what Tesla
what
did
Tesla did
maybe
exactly.
less than a year ago. They kind of threw out all of their anything that they had hard coded previously, and they just went straight end to end neural net.
No, exactly, and I think that's why everyone is understanding. And so for robotics, what's going to happen is like people are going to start doing this. I think the transformer architecture can already get us to robots that work well enough. Maybe it's not, it won't be perfect. Maybe there won't be like the grail that the robot can do anything as good as human. But for sure, they will be good enough to start to be used at scale. And that's what's going to happen. There's a bunch of those robotic companies now. They're all training very deep model to, again, end to end, really end to end, just removing everything, just model end to end and try to train on this. And we're going to see the results of this in a couple of years now, because they just started like in the past 2-3 years, some a bit before that. And this is going to change the world. It's so very binary. It's like it's useless. And then you have this non-linearity when the robot can actually empty the dishwasher. This is a litmus test for me. When you can empty the dishwasher, you've got a robot that can replace 99% of people. And then suddenly you're going to go crazy because this mini works. You understand the world. And this is happening very soon, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you said emptying the dishwasher, because it's really interesting. AI is so incredible at some things, but like the ARC prize, and I just published a video today. There was a research paper really testing the limits of O1. My favorite thing to test models is something that is just so basic for humans to accomplish, but is very, very, very difficult for AI to accomplish. And I remember years ago, Elon Musk said something like, for a human to take two cords and plug them together, it's dead simple. But for a robot, it's really difficult. I think like emptying a dishwasher to a human is very, very simple, but for a robot, very difficult. So I really like that. And to extend on that a bit, O1 specifically really showed the promise of test time compute and what can be done if models are allowed to think, quote unquote, think. What were your thoughts when you first saw that? Did you already know that there was a lot of potential there? And then where do you think it goes from there?
First of all, I agree with you that it's often a simple task. But I want to add a caveat on the litmus test of the dishwasher. It needs to be with an end-to-end deep learning model, because some companies do that with some computer vision algorithmic. This does not generalize. So this won't create this nonlinearity. We need something end-to-end. But anyway, you were asking where it goes from there. I think where it goes from there is, first of all, multimodal. You need to train the AI with more modalities. So with images, with text, with sound, with videos, and it goes with scale. So it's like horizontal scale. The more modalities you have, the more the robot at the wide array of things it can learn and model the world from. And so that's what we're trying to do. With scale of in terms of data, which is what we've been doing, and as you say, we're reaching the limit of it, which is going to expand into synthetic data, and then scale of the model themselves, which is going to keep going. And what we figured out in the past 10 years is, again, can be summarized by just scale worked. So it's just the fact that it worked, that we just made them bigger and they become more clever. And as much as we did a lot of like sneaky tricks to make it work a bit better every time, the big thing that we learned is just like we just made them bigger overall. That literally what was the biggest impact was making them bigger. And what we're seeing is that we can predictably see how much better they get as they get bigger. And so from there, what we're doing right now is that why would we try to find clever tricks to make them as well organized as a human brain if we can just brute force it? And this is what the world is saying. It's like, okay, let's just brute force it. And then we get it to a level where it's just as smart as a human. And then it can do its own research to improve itself and make itself more efficient. Because at this point, it's more clever than a human. And that the world just accepted this, and now it's just brute force it. There's no point overthinking it. If scale works, they just scale it until whatever it takes. And I think that's wonderful, because it makes it a very easy path forward to get something really intelligent.
Yeah, but like also when you saw the O1 model and you saw what was possible if the model was able to, at inference time, spend extra time planning, reflecting, basically thinking all of that time, rather than just giving the first response the thought of, what did you think when you first saw that, and then how far do you think that can scale?
I think we don't fully understand very well how those models work. And it's because, as I say, we kind of brute force it. And because we brute force it, the empirical data is a lot more, it's a lot beyond what we know theoretically. So we're just kind of saying stuff that we never really theorize. Like we're just saying what we've built, but we build much faster than the theory. And so we're getting to a point where we're just seeing the emergent property of what we observe and kind of trying to make sense of it after the fact. And this thing of chain of thought is kind of this. It's not scientific really behind it. It's just like we played with the model. We're like, oh, wait, if you tell it to do stuff in a row, it's more clever. And it's like, I'm exaggerating, but it's like kind of you 5-year-old son could have figured this out if he played long enough with it, because it's not super scientific. It's more like trial and error. And it's not bad or good. It's just, by definition, we're brute forcing it. The theory is behind right now on the empirical data that we have. And we just figured, okay, if you do that, it works better. Let's do that. But I wouldn't say we have a really clear and good explanation of why is it that this act this way. We don't really understand the weight. We have no good interpretation of the weights. It's purely empirical and trial and error right now. So I could provide you with a more smart looking answer, but probably the first answer is that we don't really know. We just trial and error, brute force it, get it bigger, and it's kind of what it's been. And to be fair, deep learning has been this for a while. A lot of emergent property, which are really hard to interpret.
Okay, so Sat, I want to talk about WorldCoin, but it has a lot of implications for AGI, and it's closely tied, at least from my perspective, to AGI. So I actually want to start with AGI, and I've read some of your thoughts, and I actually wrote down some of the quotes that I've found from your writings. And I want to start with just one of the quotes, because I love it, and I do believe it to be true, but I want to hear more about it. So the quote is, AGI will be the biggest and likely the last technological prowess of humanity. Basically, this is the last thing, if I'm understanding it correctly, that we will need to invent. Is that the right take? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes. So it's the idea that if we create an intelligence that is the level of humans, then because it's digital, you can just copy paste the file that is this person, this intelligence, do 1,000 of them, do 1 million of them, make them do research and improve themselves, and they will therefore all become more intelligent because they can do research on themselves, just like OpenAI is doing. And then from there, they can do research in anything. They can do research in whatever field we want. And then we can give them physicality because we have a bunch of robots. And within a few years, we'll have enough robots. We'll have hundreds of millions of robots. Just the AI can go in all of those, and it can build everything that we build. It can go mining, it can build factories, it can build rockets, it can go on the moon, come back. And it goes exponential from there because there's this self-improvement. Like the AI can build more clever AI, which can do more research. We can build better chips and factories to build better chips and just keep improving. And there's this feedback loop that will make it infinitely more intelligent than us. Maybe in a people don't agree with the timeline. It could be within 10, 20 years, be faster. But ultimately, you have something that's just so much more intelligent than human that there's no point doing any work or research because the AI, because it would be the equivalent of if we were the AI to be living in a world where you have only 5 years old. There's no point for them to do any work because you can do anything they do 1 billion times better than them. And that's kind of what would happen if the AI is 1 billion times more intelligent than human. Why would we do anything? It can do everything for us. And then there's abundance in everything. And so it completely shifts. Like the purpose of humanity is completely different, or the purpose you want to give to yourself is completely different, because work, which has been at the core of humanity for now, for forever actually, since we started settling, well, it won't be there anymore. And we will need to find new things to do, new way to use this infinite power as well, because we get infinite resources, we get infinite possibilities. What do we do from all of this? And so I think this transition is going to happen very abruptly. It won't be over centuries for sure, And therefore, we need to prepare for this because it's probably going to be pretty brutal for society and for people. And it could be going in a very negative way or a very positive way for humanity. And I think it's very important for humanity as a whole to work on making this a positive transition and not a complete hell, because it could go both ways. I think it's basically kind of opening the Pandora's box, what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and again, I'm gonna quote you because this is related to being prepared for this inevitable, at least I believe, and it seems you believe as well, inevitable intelligence explosion. To quote the situational awareness paper, this endeavor can be divided into 3 actionable categories: ensuring pre-AGI survival, enabling AGI, and ensuring post-AGI survival. This is straight from your blog post, as you know. Talk about those 3 phases and what we need to do in each to ensure not only humanity's survival, but that we are thriving and really living the best possible outcome we can.
So as I mentioned, I think AGI will arrive within a timeline. So I think most people that listen to this, they will see it happen. So the most important thing now is to ensure that this happens. It is a good transition, because if it's not, we basically all die, which is not great. And if it does happen well,
not good, not good,
not great, exactly. And if it does happen well, then we have abundance in terms of everything, and all the problem we can imagine. Climate change can be fixed. The problem with the ecosystem can be fixed. No poverty, no lack of food, no lack of water. We can go into the start, whatever. And this is obviously then the most important thing to work on. And the question is that I know most people don't really know how to model this in the worldview. Like, what do I do right now is the question from many people. What do I do? And so I try to create this simple mental model, which I also use for myself, of what to do. And as you mentioned, I divided it into 3 parts, which is basically the part before we get to the AGI. And what's important until then is for us to survive. And what that means is that we want to avoid to have a global war. Yeah. So this means what you can do is, it depends on what you're doing in your life, but you can do different things. You work in politics. You can try to work on making sure that this doesn't happen, or people understand the time criticality of keeping peace for the next couple of years. If you're working on defense, I mean, whatever, working on certain defense system, there's a broad array of things you can do that will work with this. It means also making sure that you don't die personally by then. And then I would say, like, this is all the work which is done in healthcare and longevity to ensure that people can live a couple of years longer, because a few years more might actually end up being hundreds of years more if you can pass the AGI time. So this is very important. And then after this pre-AGI phase, the second big bucket is to just enable AGI itself. It won't just happen on its own. So we still need to make it happen. And so in this, it's pretty simple. There's basically 4 things. First of all, it's just the research, which is what OpenAI is doing, Anthropic and many other, just doing the research and building the models. Second one is energy. This is going to take a lot of energy. We need to build up the energy. We don't have enough. This is simple. Just build whatever energy you can. We're going to need it. Data centers, we need chips, and we need to scale that. We've seen that in the past couple of years. This is very important for this transition. And the last part, which is, if the transition happens slowly over the next couple of years, we don't want the world to turn into chaos, because if most of the value creation comes from the AGI, but the AGI is not yet smart enough to really provide abundance for everyone, we are kind of in between, you could have a complete socioeconomic collapse because of such a sharp change, of societal change, which could be very problematic. And that's kind of why we built Worldcoin, is to try to make it so to have some infrastructure in place so that this transition can happen smoothly and we don't have global chaos, war, and internal warfare and stuff like this. And then the last part is the post-AGI survival. It means after we get AGI, and if it works, we also want to stay alive. And in this case, it means basically preventing the AGI to be completely misaligned and to do any crazy things which could damage humanity. which could mean several things. I mean, it's not integrating it with weapons and stuff like this. It means working on AI safety, which is what OpenAI and many other labs are doing, which is really important. And I think another aspect of it is working on neurotech, because neurotech is going to have a big part in all of this. I think the capability of neurotech are going to be key, I think, to ensuring safety of AGI in the future. There's basically the three big buckets, and you can kind of decide on how what you're doing relates to this, because it's probably the most important thing to do right now.
So I have kind of three follow-up questions on what you just talked about. One, and I know you probably get asked this all the time. I do as well, and nobody really knows. But what's the timeline? What like, even if you had to guess, what would you say the timelines are for those three different categories?
I think the most reasonable answer to this is not to give a number, but to give a distribution of timeline. So I think then you can give a much more opinionated answer. So I would say there's like about 40% chance that within the next 4 years, we see an AGI which is at the same level as you and me. And then probably 2 years after this, then it would be you have a super intelligence, which means something that's more clever than the most clever human in all aspects.
Yeah, and by the way, sorry to interrupt real quick, maybe take a second. What is your definition of AGI? Because I know at least a lot of the folks who watch my videos always say like, okay, well, great, you can say how long AGI is going to take, but what is the actual definition? And there's doesn't seem to be a consensus on that. What is your personal definition of AGI?
I think it would be simply something. I mean, I think you can give many definitions, and they probably all will be crossed about the same time, and it's probably just something with which you could interact as you would with another human. So you could become friends with it. You could you would share things and then come back to it and having the same expectation as a human. You would expect, like, if you told it something, it would remember. If you tell it to do a task, it would have done it the way you expect. Just something that acts and behave in all ways as you would expect a human or very smart human to do, I think. And I think spending too much time in over-defining it is not really useful, because probably all the definitions are within this range, and it's going to be crossed like this. So there will be like 2 months before like the smallest and the biggest of the AGI definition. So that's why it doesn't matter too much, I think. And then ASI, which is super intelligence, is just something for me that's just more clever than the entirety of humanity combined together as an entity.
Wow.
That's when you get to ASI. I think there's probably about two to 4 years difference between AGI and ASI when you get there. And so 40% chance that AGI is within 4 years, probably 80% chance that it's within 12 years, and then 90% chance that it's within 20 years, I would say.
Do you foresee any outcome in which we just cannot get to a super intelligence? There's something we just didn't think about, and we thought it was possible and everything headed in the right direction, and then all of a sudden we realized we just couldn't get there.
So when you ask a question like this, the first thing to think about is, okay, for first principle, what could be the limitation? And then you just go down to the laws of physics. We understand the brain pretty well now, and I mean, pretty well is a big statement. We understand the world somehow. And we know that the brain a lot of intelligence can emerge from very little information from the brain. We know the number of neurons in the brain, and we know most of the physical systems that are interacting in the brain. So we know that in this world, with the law of physics we've been given, this is possible. We know that we can emulate a lot of what's happening on the brain on computers. So I really don't see any fundamental reason why this would not be possible. I can see that a specific technique that we're taking could not be the right one. But then what's going to happen probably, if it's not the case, there's so much momentum and money behind AGI that even if we hit the wall on this trajectory of the tree, we have enough momentum to go see another path and explore this one, which might be the right one. And I think it almost doesn't matter if like the transformer is the right thing, because there's just so much momentum and money. And there's more and more people every day moving from every field into AI, that even if we get blocked, we just choose another alternative. We could even, if none of it work, the last alternative we have, which will work, is just doing whole brain emulation, which is another field which is trying to basically copy the entire brain of a human and just like rerun it on a computer, the exact same brain. And we can already do that with worm. We're about to be able to do that with fruit fly. And when we can do that with humans, we also have an artificial general intelligence. It's just like a copy of the brain run on the computer. And this is kind of the most easy version of it. Just literally just redo what the brain does. It might not be the most smart, but if nothing else works, just do that. So I don't believe there's a fundamental blocker. That there might be setback, but not blockers.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, I made a video about the worm simulation. I found that absolutely stunning. It was so cool.
I don't know if you saw the fruit fly. The fruit fly brain
just happened, right?
Yeah, and so we're gonna start working on the emulation now. And the next step is a monkey and then human. So it's getting there. We only have to go to the
easy jump. Okay, so what? Let's talk about alignment for a second. And I know we're spending a lot of time on AGI, but I find this fascinating. Are you in the camp, or I should say, which camp are you in? Open source is the right way to align, or closed source is the right way to align?
I'm not with the camp of open source. Everything fully is a good idea, because in the case where the AGI, when we get there, it's not very aligned and it's quite dangerous. You wouldn't want it to go from the moment it gets created to the public with 1 day difference, and then anyone in the world can use it. I think this is just very dangerous. And also it means that a lot of nefarious actors can have access to it. And so the closer we get to something that can become a super intelligence, the more we have to be careful that it can actually be aligned and work with the incentive that we want it to have. So the pure open source, I don't think is a good idea. It's fine when we don't have anything that's super clever, which is the case right now, which it can do interesting things, but it's not insane. It won't be when we get closer, I think, to the real AGI and ASI. I'm not for the fully closed source where we don't know what's happening, because the public needs to know what's happening for it to be in the public discourse, for it to be a concern for politicians, and for the right push to be made. We just need awareness of what's going on. But the models being out there, like the latest one, if we get something that it's much cleverer than a human, it's just super dangerous. I mean, like it can do, like, I mean, anyone can use it. I mean, like terrorist group can use it. I mean, also it can just on its own, it could go rogue and do things that we don't want to. I don't think that's a good idea at all.
So I'm a big proponent of open source. So I want to kind of just state the counter argument to, and I know you're not saying open source is not the way, but let me just state why I believe personally open source could be the right way. One, like what we've seen in the history of open source is when it's out there, when more eyeballs are on it, it becomes hardened at a much faster rate than closed source. I also don't believe AGI superintelligence is going to happen like with a flip of a switch. I really believe it's going to be incremental over time. So the idea that we're suddenly going to have the code that is AGI and then everybody has the code that is AGI, it doesn't seem quite likely to me. And then I think another way to think about it is closed source means only a handful or even just one company and a handful of folks within that company have access to it and really know what's going on. And private enterprise has not proven itself to be perfectly secure, to say the least, right? We've lost a lot of IP. We've had stolen a lot of IP over the years by, foreign state actors. And I like, to me, the idea that a few people will be able to protect these secrets better than a lot of people being able to harden a non-secret, it just seems less likely.
So I can agree for the secret part, but I think what would make the most sense is for the government at some point to get involved in the protection of those secrets, making it a lot more hardened. That's what I would expect. Like some kind of Manhattan project needs to happen for AI, in my opinion. It's very clear. I agree as well that if it's a slow takeoff and the AI slowly becomes more intelligent over many years, then open source makes a lot more sense. I think it makes everything more hardened. It gives access to everyone. There's secrecy and everything. But unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be the case, and which is why I'm not fully a proponent of I'm okay with open source right now. It's just the closer we get to the nuke, which is like AGI, like self-improving, like AGI that is clever enough to self-improve. This is the limit, basically. When we get close enough to AGI that can self-improve, I don't think it's a good idea then to open source the same way that we do right now. I think when we get there, what we want is to make sure that we understand this thing much better, because as mentioned earlier, the theory is a lot behind the practice. We don't understand most of what's going on with those models. We just create them, and then after that we check out what's happening by just pinging all the button, which does not seem great when we get to a point where something can self-improve. Like I think many people don't understand how crazy is something that can self-improve. Like there's no limit. Like this is like reaching for infinity. This is the point where you reach infinity. Like until then, you're not infinity. Until then, you have a defined number. But when you get to the point of self-improvement without any external input, that's when you're touching infinity. And it's very different to touch a large number in terms of elo point, for example, than to touch something that's like infinite in terms of elo point. Like very, very different. And that's why, like, I think when we get closer to this nuke point, we should be a lot more careful, basically, of this explosion. And then if you want to go further, there's also a lot of, the just geopolitical and terrorist war between a lot of actors. And if you have a model so just very intelligent that you could just install on a robot, just put the weight on the robot, and the robot is super intelligent and can do whatever you ask it to do, there's also implication of this. Like I think it can be dangerous. I don't think it should be a private company. I think it should be protected by government, and then it should be just as much transparency with the public, which what's going on, like full transparency. Just you should not give access to the model itself. Just transparency. Okay, we have this level of intelligence. I want the entirety of transparency except the weight and the algorithmic. Everything else can be transparent.
Yeah, fair. Okay. No, I appreciate that point of view. Even if I don't necessarily agree with that outcome, I want to ask you one last question on the AGI front, because you talked about earlier, like, we're gonna have to figure out new things to do. Let's just say there's this unlimited resources, unlimited research, unlimited intelligence. We don't necessarily have to work anymore. If we have embodied intelligence in the form of robots, we don't have to do physical labor anymore. So what will people do? And my question to you is there a set of tasks or a category of things that humans do today that AI won't ever be able to do? And a few things come to mind. So true creativity. I know it's like the earliest days and it's the worst it's ever going to be, but if I try to have even the best models write me, a story or a research paper, it doesn't seem like it's even close to as creative as a human can be. Morality, judgment when the stakes are really high. Is there a set of tasks that you think humans will always need to do?
If you go into the thing is like the very low level task, which like very specific, like creativity, ethics, I don't think that humans will be better than robots for long. I think this is just a matter of time. I think I believe in physicality of things, and everything we do or say comes from just intelligence, and you can reproduce this. There's the same physical law for those models. If it doesn't get reproduced on chips, worst case, just emulate an entire brain. Like the chips become intelligent enough to just emulate an entire brain on the computer, and then it can do the same thing. But I don't even think we need to get there. Probably the chip, like, it can be emulated only with the chips, and probably a better substrate in the future. So I do not think so at a specific level. But what I think humans will always be needed for is, okay, you have this sandbox mode now of the world where you can do whatever you want, but you need to decide what you want. And assuming we can align, which I hope we will be able to, this AGI, then as a species, we need to decide, okay, what do we do now? And it's kind of, we have all possibilities and we can build whatever we want. So do we go colonize Mars first? Do we terraform the Earth in a certain way? Do we build some spatial structure? Do we revive the dinosaurs? Do we keep them dead and just make sure that all the species live fine? Do we, you have kind of infinite possibility. Everyone could have like a swarm of drones following them, and whenever they think of something, it gets built live in front of them and then deconstructed live. So it's kind of like
you ever play Factorio, by the way?
Yeah, well, like exactly. You could have something like this.
Like when you said that, that's exactly what I was thinking.
And I think you could exactly have. I think those kind of crazy things that people find unbelievable could exist. Like literally, you could have because you could have a swarm of drone that is connected to you via BCI. So you could literally think of a building. You just build it live. It could just use the atoms from the atmosphere to create the material live. Like physically, this is in theory possible if you have energy.
That's so cool.
And just build the thing live and deconstruct it live. And you could have like a thing bigger than the Burj Khalifa built in 2 seconds, for example. And when you have this level of possibility in the world, which seems crazy right now, but the problem is exponential. They go fast.
Yeah.
And so if it keeps going exponentially, it won't be so crazy in a few years. And where the humans fit in is, okay, now we get to decide. It's just like if you play a game in normal mode and then you can unlock the sandbox, which is basically what AGI does, you still are at the helm and you decide what you want to do. And that's why humans will be. They still need to decide how to will this. What do we do now? And I think that the universe becomes like our canvas. We can draw whatever we want on it. We just need to decide what we would like to grow. And you can never be replaced by this because it's whatever makes you feel better. Like it's not a question of intelligence, it's a question of what we want.
Yeah. So I think that's a good time to transition to Worldcoin, which is your company. I have a bunch of questions about Worldcoin, but let's just start with maybe give a brief explanation of what is Worldcoin.
So I mentioned Worldcoin briefly earlier in this kind of model of what to work on AGI, and it's fit into the category of enabling AGI. So what Worldcoin wants to do is, in the case where we have a slow takeoff of AGI, we don't want the world to go into chaos. We don't want the technological change, to cause a complete socio-economic chaos because people don't know how to organize themselves. The jobs are completely different. There's complete readjustment of value creation. And we believe that one very fundamental component of this is to have an identity system on the internet that can actually work at scale, differentiate humans from bots in a world where you have advanced artificial intelligence that you won't be able to differentiate via video, not via puzzle that depends on intelligence, not by microphone. The only way to differentiate them becomes this system, because there won't be any other alternative anymore. And so this is very important for many reasons, to have this new primitive of the internet for keeping a healthy and alive internet. And then from this, another thing that we're building is a new financial system. And for this, we didn't just reinvent a new one. We basically think that cryptocurrency is perfect, but it has one flaw, is that it's not widely distributed enough. It's too niche. It's only like 50 million people have it. And so with the technology that we have, we can identify every single human. And so what you can do is you can give one share of this cryptocurrency, or the new one that we're creating, to every single human in the world, to then expand the reach of cryptocurrency to the entire world and to push it forward, because cryptocurrency will fit much better with a system where you have advanced artificial intelligence, and you can then enable things like UBI, for example, which we can discuss if you want after more in depth, and many other things. We're pushing those two new primitives, which is a new identity system and a new financial system, basically, which is based on cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Okay. No big deal. Small problems to solve. So I want to talk about the identity part first, because I find that interesting, especially when agents start proliferating the internet. Identity online is going to become absolutely critical. How does that actually manifest itself when people are operating online? Is there like a check mark next to a human? Do we need to distinguish between human created assets and AI created assets? Like where does it fit in the field of the internet?
Yeah, so we are not dealing directly with asset creation. I think this is an extremely hard problem. And the only way, I don't think there's a million ways. I think there's literally one only way to differentiate a picture created from a human and a non-human is if you had in the camera directly a secured hardware module that would sign every image. And I think that's the only way to actually make sure that something comes from a camera and does not come from some image generation. And I'm hoping that most of the camera manufacturers of the world are going to start integrating this and use this to sign images so that we can actually differentiate it. But there's no other way to solve this. And for text, it's even worse. I think for text, it is impossible. There's no way, given two pieces of text, to know if it was human created or not. And I don't think we're gonna come up with a way to do that. That being said, what we're building is at the layer of human. What you can do is to ensure that a human is indeed a human, is performing an action only once on the internet and not multiple times, and that this human is indeed unique. And that's what we're building. We're building a way for any website or any digital application to check that the person interacting with the website and performing a specific action is, first of all, indeed a real human, and second of all, has not performed this action before. And you can do this without revealing the identity of the person or anything about the person. And we use some advanced cryptography to make that possible. And that allows us to do many things. And you can do things that, first of all, are going to become compulsory on the internet soon, because social media are going to be complete chaos without it. It can be only you and a bunch of bots chatting all day, and at some point people will get bored when they will realize this is the case.
Right.
And just all over the internet, like KYC won't be possible pretty soon. You'll have issue around this, and just the fact that a single person used to be able to create hundreds and now 1,000 and now millions of bots for $1,000 on the internet is problematic. I mean, like the state actors are going to become so huge and powerful that needs to do something. So we're dealing with a human problem. You can still, with this one identity that you have, share content that generated by AI, but at least you won't be able to create 1,000 accounts and share those from 1,000 or 1,000,000 accounts. You will only be able to do that from one account, and therefore it would be much easier to understand if like this person actually sharing real or not information.
So let me take a step back for a second. How did you start WorldCoin? And I know you're also an investor, you're a founder. So I want to talk a little bit about both of those things, but how did you start WorldCoin? Sam Altman is your co-founder, and how did you meet him? When did you start? How did you start it? Give me the founding story.
So the company started in 2019. There were a couple of us at the beginning. We, like the core of the team, met in Caltech. I personally went to Caltech because I just needed the visa, and it was a great way to get it and to do something interesting. So I did some research in AI and neurotech when I was over there, and got the visa. And I met the other people that are now in the founding team who were doing something similar. So Germans, and they came for the same reason. They're all physicists, and they came to study physics, do some research in physics, and get the visa to build a startup. So we're like, it's perfect. We came for the same reason. And then we met Sam by through serendipity. He had this his initial kind of embryo of an idea of the need to build better infrastructure for AGI, and we then discussed with him. Initial team got along with him, and we started building. We're like, okay, we understand the problem, and let's just iterate and figure out what to do to solve this. And then over the years, we basically navigated the space and understood better and better what was important. We understood privacy was really important. We understood the identity part was a key component and needed to be figured out because this was going to be broken. We understood the timeline of AGI as well much more clearly as OpenAI was getting closer to GPT-2 and then GPT-3 and 4. And we understood then, as we grew bigger, the problematics that we're going to face on the real world, basically, what was going to be challenging in deploying such technology. and that all happened really fast. Within 5 years, we started in 2019, or 2019, and it's been about almost 5 years since we started this. And then Sam has been involved with the company since the beginning. It's been really helpful, and so hopefully now the goal is to reach 1 billion humans, which would be amazing, because then it would be when we are almost past the dollar in terms of people owning WorldCoin. That's what we're pushing for now, and it's purely operational now, just deploying the orbs everywhere in the world.
I'm glad you mentioned the orbs. So I remember when it was first launched, it like really kind of went wild on the internet. It was super fascinating. First of all, explain what the orb is, and then I also would love to hear some of the technical achievements that went into building this device.
So the orb, if we divide the timeline of WorldCoin, which is about 5 years, we spent basically 1.5 years developing a V0 prototype of the orb that works at all, another year to make it work at bigger scale, and only after 2.5 years, and then at the same time that we also started deploying it very slowly just to test it out, but it was very broken. And only after this initial 2.5 years, we could actually start deploying more at scale, because the device took us so long to get to a good state. The reason is that, to give you an order of magnitude, we have a similar project in India that was done with the government of India. It's called the Aadhaar project, and they have this project for welfare. Welfare was problematic because people were just claiming it 20 times, and it's just a huge problem. So they built an iris scanning system for the entirety of India. For everyone needs to be registered to this, and if you want the welfare, you have to check with iris scan that you are indeed not been given the welfare before. And this cost them, by memory, around like $7 billion to do, and took them about 5 years to do. The system that we're building, in terms of the quality of the images that we needed to get, needed to be about an order and a half of magnitude better than the one in India. And we also didn't spend billions of dollars. We spent to get to the initial, I think, prototype that actually worked well enough to scale. It cost us a couple of tens of millions only, because that's all we have. So we just built it with it, and took us only 2.5 years. And this is only one component, because this is just a visual system to capture the iris. On top of all, you need to have, because this is not going to be operated like in India, in a very secure location where people are overseeing it and there's no fraud. It's being operated in the wild, anywhere in the world. So there's a lot of fraud that can happen around it. And so you need to ensure that the thing in front of the orb is a real human, is alive, is an adult, that there's no fraud being done, there's no contact lenses that are put on the eyes and all of this. Because if you can fraud the system, you can create new identity. And so we have to develop this whole fraud detection technology from scratch, basically. And that was also a huge amount of work to build that. And that required adding all type of sensors, like thermal cameras and so on, to get something that could actually reliably tell you this is indeed a human in front of us, and we're sure of this. And then the old security around this as well, which is like we orders of magnitude better than the security of cars, for example, because we needed to be more like towards the military grade security on the device. Because if you can hack it, again, it's like an ATM. You can create infinite account and then get infinite money. And so that's why we had this huge technological challenge. And for the first 2.5 years, we were really like just heads down and working. And that's why it was great, because the initial team was a bunch of physicists, computer scientists, and we just were good at this kind of thing, solving problems. And we worked on this really heads down. And finally, after 2.5 years, we could come out of the cave and get that out to the world, which is what we've been doing for the past 2.5 years.
Amazing. So in like the most basic terms, this is a device. I don't know. I don't know if you can see this. Maybe it looks like it's about this big. It scans your iris, and then it writes that to the blockchain, and then that is your kind of signed identity. Is that fair?
I think there's a very important subtlety that's not completely right. Is that, and I think that emotionally what's impacted the most the people around WorldCoin and the view of WorldCoin, that we do not store the iris. The iris is basically a picture is taken, it goes on the device locally, and then on the device locally, it's converted onto a number, some kind of embedding of so for example, you take a picture of you. I'm going to simplify it a bit. But if you would go to the device, you take a picture, the picture stays on the device, is converted into the number, say 42. And the image is then deleted. This 42 is what we keep. And then, but this 42 is non-reversible, which means we can't just go back from the 42 and go back to your iris. But if you come again, we're going to do the same thing, capture an image, generate the 42 and be like, oh, we've seen 42 before, therefore this person must have been there. If I go to the orb, I generate an image and then I get 55. And this is not the same number. And I'm like, it's not the same person. But at no point the backend knows the images. It just gets a bunch of random numbers and just compares the random numbers, which are non-reversible. And that's a huge difference. We don't care about the images and we don't need the images, which is why we try to make that explicit and explain to people we're not capturing images for the sake of images. It's just literally the only solution we could find. It's the only biometric information that is stable enough over time, has enough entropy, and is usable for this type of identity system. We just didn't have a choice. We looked for everything. I mean, the other one we could have used is DNA, but I'm not sure people would have enjoyed the blood sample more than the eye capture. So we ended up with irises.
All right, that's super helpful to know, especially if you're really concerned with privacy. That's very helpful to know that you're not actually storing the iris. You're storing essentially a converted version of it that cannot be converted back. When that process happens, what does the user get? Like, how do they then? What is the next step after that? How do they use that verified identity?
So first of all, what they get is access to WorldCoin. They get a share of WorldCoin that's allocated to them every week. We give them a share of the cryptocurrency in a recurring way, because now we have a way to verify that they're indeed a unique human. So we know for one person, we're giving one share of this every time. And as soon as they sign up, we can add them to the system and give them this share. Secondly, they now have this digital identity, which they can use to prove that they're a unique human on the internet. And we have this all open source ecosystem where any app can integrate with it and use this. So we'll give you an example. On Shopify, any vendor can integrate with it and offer a 20% discount the first time you go on the website. You could not do that before because anyone can create another email address and you just get the 50%. But now you can do this thing, which you can't even do in real stores, because how would you recognize the people? It's like literally the only place where you can do that. When you can offer a one-time discount to a person for just becoming the first time. And you know that they've never performed this action before because you can verify this. So this is an example of one way you can use it.
That's
and
really
we basically
cool.
now working on integrating it in more and more places. I mean, there's the whole list on the website. And as you can imagine, there's like a billion ways which you can integrate this to make the internet better. Social media are a big one as well, working a lot on this, and financial system. Like there's many places where we're starting to integrate it all over the place.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. But I'm just curious, like, okay, so I scan my iris, I get verified. How do I actually use it though? Is there like an address that I get? Is there a key that I need to store? Like, what does that part look like?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So what you get actually is you have an application, and when you the entire flow is you download the application. You start, you have not signed up with the orb. It tells you, oh, the orb is there. Just tell me when you want to go. I'll tell you where the orb. You say okay. It gives you the map location. You just follow the map. You go there. You sign up. You show the app the QR code. You sign up. And then the app is telling you, okay, perfect, you've been signed up, you registered. And then every interaction goes through the app. If you want to do this interaction with Shopify, for example, Shopify is simply going to show you a QR code. You just scan it with the app and you say, okay, and it enables this. And what's happening in the background is that the app is just a crypto wallet, and the information is linked to your crypto wallet, basically. So the app is just an interface to the crypto wallet. So anyone else could rebuild the WorldCoin app, and we want more people to build the WorldCoin app. We want it to be decentralized, so anyone could do that. But for now, you can do that already with the WorldCoin app itself, and it's your interface basically to all of this. It just allows you to interface with the crypto wallet that contains your identity.
Is it still exposed to the risk of human error? Meaning, like, I have this app. What if I lose my phone? How do I get it back? What if somebody else is able to find the key for the wallet? Like, how do you handle those situations?
Yeah. So of course we did assume that if 8 billion people have the token, have the WorldCoin identity, people are going to lose their phone. People are going to get mugged. Like all kind of scenarios. We've of course thought of this. So you can recover. You simply go back to an orb, scan again, and you can claim back your identity basically to a new wallet, which you create with a new phone. So even if you get your wallet stolen, for example, or whatever, it will just remain this way until you get to an orb, basically. And then we
But somebody could. Sorry to interrupt. Somebody could technically steal my wallet and use my identity until I re-verify.
Yes, but we're working also on a system to potentially block this.
Cool.
I mean, this wouldn't make it too different from any other digital identity, which is it's blocked until I mean, it's usable if you just give it to someone or someone takes it.
Okay, that makes sense now. Do you have any plans, or does it even make sense to verify AI? In the sense that, let's say this is my AI agent. I want to be able to have it verify itself on my behalf without me involved, because at scale that wouldn't work. Is that part of your mission?
So what do you mean by this? Like really integrating with the latest agent and model that exist, or how would you see this?
So let's say I have an agent that I want to work on my behalf. I want it to log into my bank accounts. I want it to log into my email, but I don't want to have to verify myself every single time with a QR code. Can I verify that this, or can I allow this agent to verify itself as my agent, almost as like a separate verification? I don't even know if that's the right way to think about it. But I essentially want this agent to be able to perform sensitive actions on my behalf, and I'm giving it authority to do so.
Yeah. So you can, I mean, you will be able to do this, and purely because this entire thing of the identity, the wallet, and everything is all a smart contract on the blockchain that's linked to your wallet, and the only thing you need to have full control of the wallet is your private key. And then you can build more systems around it to make it so that you don't have to give the private key directly to the bot, but you can potentially give something else and give ownership to the system that takes care of the private key. But fundamentally, as soon as you have the private key of the wallet, you can do any of the identity interaction, and you can do that all in code because it's all open source. It's in the blockchain, so any computer can hit it, and so anyone can do it. So that's a complete yes, you can do that. You maybe don't want to give your private key directly to a bot. There will probably be a bunch of layer of identity systems that were built above this to make it a bit less secured. But fundamentally, you can do it from any computer in the world, anywhere. You need a single key and it can do everything.
And I want to continue the discussion about agents. I think we just had a few weeks ago our first agent-to-agent transaction over using crypto, if I remember correctly. I'm a big believer that in the future there's going to be a tremendous amount of agent-to-agent transactions, and crypto is the perfect medium for that to happen. How does WorldCoin help verify the identity or help those transactions become more seamless and secure?
Like the main role of WorldCoin in the short term is to ensure that the identity layer around those transactions, which is in the financial system, a big deal, especially as crypto is trying to get closer to authority and to get more accepted by the mainstream, which is the goal of WorldCoin. The KYC and identity is a huge thing, and it's a huge problem. The fact that, I think crypto has been bots all over the place and really hard to follow what's going on. Adding some kind of identity layer will help basically bring it a bit closer to the legacy system and a bit more friendly to regulators and the rest. And the goal is to make it more mainstream ultimately for WorldCoins. It's a good thing, I think. And then we have the good thing is like we're not building an old school KYC. This identity system is built in the cryptocurrency. And so we're using the same paradigm and the same language as the rest of the ecosystem, still allowing to provide identity, which again is very useful for regulators and many other people. But fundamentally, our technology does not provide any information about you. All it says is you're a human and you're unique. You can then build application on top of this primitive to link more information. You could add your email to this. You could add your age. You could add your nationality, whatever you want. But fundamentally, we're completely privacy preserving. We don't provide any information. Then it's up to the app and to the layers above it to decide what they want to associate with the account or expose to the website interacting with it. And that is basically a toolbox that will mean that anyone can adjust them to the need to provide more or less information about the person, including regulators, including the centralized exchange, and all of this can choose the level of privacy versus information they want. But we build it to be agnostic, so you can just build on it whatever you want, and it starts from zero, basically.
Okay, that's great. So, Sat, I want to talk about the WorldCoin business, the business itself. You raised a bunch of money. Are you making money? What does the actual economics of WorldCoin look like? And then you also mentioned giving shares to everybody who verifies their humanness. Should people think about WorldCoin as something that is tradable, or does it increase and decrease in value? Is it a stable coin? Yeah, like I want to know, like, how does WorldCoin earn money in the long run? What's the structure of the business? And then how should people think about the actual shares that they're receiving?
Yes, so first of all, there are two entities. One is the WorldCoin Foundation, which is similar to the Ethereum Foundation. And the funding is similar to Ethereum, comes from a subset of the token, which is owned by the WorldCoin Foundation, which is used to finance the operation, basically, and the ecosystem around WorldCoin. And then you have the Tools for Humanity company, and this one is basically providing the orb, providing the app, and doing all the development behind it and all the operations and everything. But the goal of this company is to not get it decentralized. We centralized this into one company at the beginning because it was too small for anyone to be interested to do that on our behalf. The goal is, as we get bigger, that's why we started to push. So more people building apps that can be used instead of the WorldCoin app, more people building orbs outside of WorldCoin itself, and to have that be an entire ecosystem, and to everyone to do that, working with a central entity, which is the WorldCoin Foundation, basically. So currently, that's like the structure that we have in the company, and the how we split responsibility, basically.
How does, so you, I mean, you have a decent sized team. I actually don't know, how big is your team?
We're about 300, 400 people maybe now.
Okay, so right, a lot of compensation. How does the WorldCoin Foundation continue to earn money and then pay its employees and
So for the payment, then the WorldCoin Foundation to add the token or the pool of token that they can use to pay for the operation, and the Tools for Humanity Foundation is working for the WorldCoin Foundation and is getting paid as a subsidiary. It's actually not a subsidiary; it's a completely disconnected entity, but like a contractor for the WorldCoin Foundation, and is getting paid by the WorldCoin Foundation using the token, basically, that the WorldCoin Foundation owns. So similar to Ethereum. In terms of the token, it's not a stable coin because there's no mechanism to maintain the price. The idea that the price is representing basically the value that this ecosystem is creating through the identity system, and it will be used within the ecosystem with the identity system, and then in the very long term, the goal is that can be used with things like UBI, for example, once we have advanced AI, which is universal basic income, and to just be the financial tool that you use in the AI internet, basically. And there's many angles in which you will do this, and we'll firstly integrate it deeply with Worldcoin. This is the role of the token.
So so just I just want to make sure I understood correctly. The token itself, so when I receive a share, that share can increase in value with the growth of the network itself.
That's right. Like the idea is a network itself. I mean, as we've seen in the past with crypto, with social networks, and with all the network effects actually that we've seen recently in tech, it's exponentially proportional to the number of participants in the network. Actually, it's more quadratic than exponential, but quadratically proportional, which means like the more, it's not linear. It's not like the more one more is participant is one more in the value of the network. It gets more and more because each new participant has connection with a bunch of participants. And so that's why, for example, the dollar is significantly more valuable than, say, the Argentinian pesos. I mean, this one has been devalued, but like whatever, because the network of people who own the dollar is huge. It's about 1.2 billion people. For Argentine pesos, it's like about a couple, 50, like 30 million, something like this, maybe 40 million.
Right.
And I think growing this network by only a factor of 30x, 40x does not multiply the value by 40x, but by a lot more because of the type of the network. And we're betting basically on this network effect and on the power of the Worldcoin network to be purely proportional to the size, to the quadratic of the size. And we think that this is the most important, which is why the main focus right now is purely size. It's just operation, getting as much people to be able to join, and then to bet that a huge amount of emergent property are going to come from having a huge network. And this is where the value comes from.
And I'm trying to figure a part out. So if the value is increasing, but it's not tradable because it represents my personal identity. It's mine. So first of all, let me just ask, does that mean it's not tradable? And thus, if it's not tradable, how as an end user would I extract the value from the increased value of the token over time?
Okay, I think that's good things to clarify. First of all, your identity is linked to your crypto wallet, but is independent of your Worldcoin token. Those are two different things. So you can use your identity independent of your crypto token, and you can move the crypto token independently of the identity. Two different things that will be tied at the application layer, but they're not tied at the wallet layer. And secondly, the token right now is already public, which means like you can already, there's already like a market for it on whatever, Coinbase, Binance, or whatever. And you can already sell and buy it. So you could sell your token or all your token if you want to, completely independent of your identity, keep your identity. You can buy token if you want to, independent of the identity. And the price of the token is already public. I mean, there's a public market for it, there's supply and demand. And so those are disconnected. The vision with it is that we want to use this token to be the enablement, again, of the AGI internet, and to be also support layer for the identity system. And there's many ways for this to happen and to make that happen. And therefore, then that's why the value is of this whole ecosystem is strongly proportional to just the size of it. And this is the most important thing. It's always size. You need to get big as fast as possible.
That's super helpful. Yeah, okay, that clarifies a lot to me. The last thing I want to touch on, and you mentioned it briefly a couple times, is UBI. It's not a topic I know a ton about, but I have a feeling you do. I would love to hear, like, how do you see UBI coming to fruition in the future as it relates to AGI? And then how does WorldCoin help facilitate UBI?
So first of all, UBI, for those who don't know what it is, means a universal basic income, which means that everyone gets an income independent of what they're doing, independent of anything. Just by being human, you get one share of the income. And I don't think this is a good system in a world without AGI. I think this would be a horrible system. Maybe not horrible, but really not the best. But in a world where the value is completely centralized and also created by an entity which you can't beat at anything, it becomes necessary, because how else would you distribute the value and the creation that this centralized entity is making. You need a way to do this. So UBI, by giving everyone a share of the wealth, enables this, basically enables the world to have a system, a socioeconomic system, to redistribute this value creation. And even in a slow takeoff, when the AI slowly becomes more intelligent, it won't go from completely decentralized value creation to purely centralized to one entity. It will go slowly. I mean, over time, slowly, a few people are going to create more and more of the wealth of the world because they would be just the people with access to those intelligence. And there might just not be a need for everyone to work. If we can by default provide health, housing, and food for every person in the world very easily with very few people working, it might just mean that work is not compulsory. Like it doesn't mean it's needed. We might not be yet via AGI, but even in this intermediary phase, you could get to a point where you're just not necessarily needed. And so you would still need a system, even pre-AGI, where you have advanced AI, to make it work with this more centralized value creation and still have a system where everyone can profit of this and where you can be beneficial to the world. Without this, if you think about it right now, what would you do if the value becomes very centralized? Very few people can produce for the entire world. How do you redistribute? How do you provide, if you don't have an identity system that's global, how do you do that? There's no other way to do this. You need a way to know which people have been given one share and a way to distribute it efficiently. And with a system like Worldcoin, you could do that instantly with the entire world, with every single human in the world, which I think will prevent from a societal collapse if we have a too sharp change in the way the world works, basically.
And then, like, from an economics perspective, if everybody's wealth increases by a unit of 100, let's just throw out a nice round number, doesn't that just cause inflation of any goods and services that they're going to be acquiring with that new wealth? Like, how does that actually work?
I mean, I think it's very clear that the way the world works is Keynesian, and what that means is there was two fundamental theory of economic at the time: is the classical and the Keynesian. The classical theory is that the world is driven by demand, which means that production will adapt to demand. And that was the case, the belief for a while. But then what happened is the Keynesian said, well, but it seems that if we can produce a certain amount, in the long term, the world is capable of producing a certain amount of a good. It seems that demand is kind of like optional, like because it's easy to produce it anyway. So even if the demand decreases, we're still able to produce it. And so it seems that the world is more driven by demand. And what we figured out is that in the short term, usually the quantities are defined by demand, but in the long term, it's defined by supply, which means at this point, for example, in history, we know how to produce cars, and it does not depend on the demand for cars. It depends on the supply. Because it's easy to supply cars, then we will provide cars, because even 100 years ago, the demand of cars was insane. We will not produce an insane number of cars because we didn't know how to do it. But now we know how to do it. And so with the same amount of demand, we have more sold because the supply provides for the world. And so if the supply of everything increases, the demand won't, like, it's independent from the demand. It means we should just give more to everyone. If it takes like 10% work hour to supply for the food of an entire country, it doesn't matter, like the demand, like for the country or the pricing and everything. All of this is accessory. Like what matters is like 10% can produce the food for a country. Therefore, the country will never be hungry because it becomes very little work to do. And all the economics around it doesn't matter. All that matters in the end is the supply. How easy is the supply to provide? And same for everything that you produce. If you can produce a lot of any good because of AI with very little effort, then the prices won't go crazy. They will just adjust to whatever supply of currency there is to make it cheap for everyone, because it depends again on supply, the pricing of it.
I see. Okay. That makes sense. So if the real determining factor is the supply that we can create, and then all of a sudden we have, well in the future, infinite supply, does that mean that demand will just inevitably catch up to it, and until then prices just drop to whatever that equilibrium point is?
That would mean that ultimately prices will go to zero for everything,
Right.
basically, without maybe practically hitting zero, but like just like become so low that it's like it's marginal. It's just the time for you to think about it in the very long term, and the shorter term, it would just drop to absurdly low. I mean, that's what we don't even need to imagine the future. You can just look in the past. That's what's been happening, you know, like the price for practical thing, for like feeding yourself for your entire life, for example. Now with like 3 months of salary, you could buy supply of food for your entire life. And this was not possible before. So the price proportionally of how much you earn of everything has decreased. And that's why like the GDP per capita of the world is increasing, is because it's not because of demand, it's because we can supply more to the world. And if this keeps going, we can build more with less effort. It will keep going. It's like you can just imagine that the continuity of the GDP per capita going up, 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 until everyone GDP per capita is like 1 billion. And everyone can live the equivalent of what 1 billion can afford, but actually even more because technology would advance. So in the past, even with 1 billion, you couldn't buy an advanced computer. It would be the same. So yeah, this is just going to just imagine GDP per capita just keeps going up and up and up and up and up, basically to the sky.
It's such a cool future to envision. I like to be optimistic about the future, and a lot of what you're describing, it makes me feel good. It makes me excited about the future. It makes me excited to talk about these things, and I appreciate you working on such a core foundational element of what the infrastructure of the future needs to be. I know we talked about AGI can go kind of one of two ways. I'd like to think it's going to go the good way, and we're going to have this future of unlimited resources. I really like the idea that people are building towards that future. So, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining me, Sat. Thanks for chatting about this. Thanks for your work on Worldcoin. And yeah, it was a really cool, interesting conversation.
No, thanks a lot, Matthew. I mean, I think it was great. I'm very optimistic as well for the world. I just think humanity needs to get together and push that forward in the right direction. I think also what you're doing of spreading like those idea and concepts which are very unknown and futuristic for many is very important. We need everyone to understand where humanity stands, what's about to happen, and the importance of us as a species to navigate that properly, because I think it's probably the most exciting and important time that has ever been for humanity.
I appreciate you saying that. So if people want to find you personally, what are the best places to find you?
Probably on Twitter. Like I'm trying to respond to people when they share ideas or things with me, and to remain accessible. So I'm always happy to chat with people if people want to discuss about anything around this, or even like want some pointers to what to work on, what would be important and helpful for this transition of the world. I'm very happy to push and help this.
Cool. And we'll drop your Twitter address in the description below. And then if people want to get their iris scanned, if they want to get more involved in WorldCoin, where do they go? What do they do?
The app is the best if you want to you just download it and it gives you all the instructions. It tells you where the orb, what to do, nice infographics, and it should guide you really smoothly to understand what WorldCoin and the ecosystem. So just download the app and follow what it tells you.
Okay. I'm going to drop all of the links in the description below. Sat, once again, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. It was great talking to you as well.